Hello and welcome to my videos. My name is Ashish and today we are going to look at scope values in Java. Scope values were introduced as incubating feature in Java 20. The purpose of introduction of scope value is to enable the sharing of immutable data within and across threads. Idea is that scope value will be preferred over thread local variables, especially when using large number of virtual threads. Java thread local class provides thread local variables. It enables you to create variables that can only be read and write by the same thread. Thread local instances are typically private static fields in the classes that wish to associate the state with the thread. You can look at the diagram and see how thread local variable is associated to each thread. If two threads are executing the same code, that the code has a reference to a thread local variable, then two threads can't see the local variable of each other. This is useful when you have a data that needs to be shared within the context of a single thread, but isolated from other threads. Thread local is commonly used in the scenarios where you need to store thread-specific data, such as user sessions in a web application, database connection, and various forms of context information that should be isolated per thread to avoid synchronization overhead and potential race conditions. However, it should be used with caution, as excessive use of thread local variable can lead to excessive memory consumption and potential resource leaks if values are not properly cleaned up when no longer needed. So let's look at what are the problems with the thread local. So unfortunately, thread locals have numerous design flaws that are impossible to avoid. For example, unconstrained mutability. That is, every thread local variable is mutable. Any code that can call get method of a thread local variable can call the set method too, and it can change the state of the variable at any time. Unbounded lifetime is once a thread's incarnation of a thread local variable is written via set method, the incarnation is retained for the lifetime of the thread or until the code in the thread calls the remove method. Unfortunately, developers often forget to call remove method. So per thread data is often retained for longer than necessary. In addition, for programs that rely on unconstrained mutability of thread local variable, there may not be a clear point at which it is safe for a thread to call remove. This can cause long-term memory leak since per thread data will not be a garbage collected until the thread exists. It would be better if the writing and reading per thread data occurred in a bounded period during the execution of the thread, avoiding the possibility of leaks. Extensive inheritance is the overhead of thread local variable may be worse when using large number of threads because thread local variables of a parent thread can be inherited by child thread. A thread local variable is not in fact local to one thread. When a developer chooses to create a child thread that inherits thread local variable, the child thread has to allocate storage for every thread local variable previously written in the parent thread. This can add significant memory footprint. Child threads cannot share the storage used by the parent thread because the thread local variables are mutable, and thread local API requires that the mutation in one thread is not seen in the other thread. This is unfortunate because in practice, child threads rarely call set method on their inherited thread local variables. So then what are scope values and how they solve this problem? A scope value allows data to be safely and inefficiently shared between components in large program without resorting to method arguments. It is a variable of type scope value. Typically, it is declared as final static field, so it can easily be reached from many components. So it allows sharing of immutable data safely and efficiently within thread or across threads and between components. Let's look at the goals of the scope values. So simplify the usage, provide a programming model to share the data both within a thread or with child threads, so as to simplify reasoning about the data flow between the components also. Comprehensibility is the make the lifetime of shared data visible from a syntactic structure of the code. So it's the transparency and comprehensibility makes the lifetime of the shared data visible. Robustness ensure the data shared by caller can be retrieved only by a legitimate callee. Performance, the treat shared data as immutable so as to allow sharing by a large number of threads and enable runtime optimization. As of now, existing thread local API will not be deprecated, does not require migration away from thread local variable. So with that, now let's look at the code, how we can use thread local variable. So here I have already written one code. And first of all, you need to enable preview API by going into file. Wait, so we have to click or right click on your project, go to module settings. Then in project, here you will select JDK 21 and you have to select language level as 21 preview so that your preview features will be enabled. Now here, as stated in the slide, I have created static final scope value of type integer, and I have not used new keyword to create the instance. Instead, I have used new instance method from the scope value, built-in method used from scope value. The main method, inside main method, I have created one simple loop, and inside that I have created new thread. I have used lambda runnable expression, and inside that I have used this expression scope value. So look at the code, how I have initialized the scope value. So normally we have seen how we initialize the value. You will see the difference that here what we are doing is scope value, and then we are assigning value, scope value, and we are calling run method. This run method is again a runnable. This runnable task, this task will have the scope value. Whatever value we assign, the scope of that scope value will be inside this lambda task. So let's run this code. So inside this code, so for outer loop, we are going to create three threads, So three times we are going to create new thread, and each thread, inside each thread, we have again a loop of three. So it will print three times the scope value, and we'll see the thread name and the scope value. It will return its value, and we have added sleep also. So let's run this code and look at the output. So you can see thread 2 is assigned with 24, 24, 24, and so as 1 and 0, the value is returned. Okay, and second important part, I mean this scope value dot where function and run this so first of all, scope value dot where we can assign multiple scope values by appending dot where, and then in the final, so it's like our stream API. We can call multiple time where function, and in the end we will call run as a terminating operation, and inside that run we'll have the task which is going to accept this scope value. This where run task will have practically, if you are using Spring Boot or any server framework, you will have this application dot handle call. Here that call basically you should be calling from this run method. So this is how you can use scope value in your program. So make sure, so this is the preview API as I mentioned earlier. So thanks for watching my video. Please like, share, subscribe if you are liking the content of my videos. Thank you.